Good morning, Senate Agriculture, back in action. We are going to take some more testimonies on paraquat, we're going to talk with some orchard folks today. I am looking for testifiers. We're going to also do this on Tuesday, and we're going to keep on hearing from folks pros and cons. We understand that it's a passionate argument that we are looking at, and we do have a lot of folks that want to tell us and explain to us how terrible Parkinson's is. We understand that, and we really do, and we're I can't even imagine what a diagnosis like that would be like. That isn't what we're looking for, to hear about how bad the disease is. And it's not being unsympathetic, since we don't take that the committee is anyway minimizing any of that. We are trying to find what is the use of paraquat in the state of Vermont, and how it may be leaked into the public to where it could get to somebody that could cause Parkinson's, if there is a link with that as well. We have yet to hear compelling testimony one way or the other. And so we are going to keep on taking testimony all the way until this committee can get comfortable with making and defending a decision about which way they go with this bill. That is what we want to get to. We are going to start the morning out with 3 testifiers, possibly 4. I see Representative Burt's in the room as well. And who would and we have some folks on Zoom as well, Linda?
Yes.
And so who would like to go first? Are you prepared?
Sure.
Step on up. The
So
floor. Yep. The floor is yours, sir.
Time limit?
No, keep going.
5 minutes?
Go.
Good morning. 30 seconds. Right. I guess
You're done.
Yeah. Good Friday. I guess I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name's Dan Bear. I run the Peck Farm Orchard in East Montpelier, Vermont. Our property was settled in 1788 by Nathaniel Peck. We're descendants. So in some form or fashion, it's been in the family since it was settled. Also, where I grew up is the childhood home of Nathaniel Peck, the 35th governor of Vermont. We've always had, throughout those generations, a close working relationship with the Rangers. It's sustained us quite literally. It is, I like to say, if everything burned down around me, I still couldn't move because they're so treated. So we came from it. So when we make decisions regarding farming, there are generations looking down at us, wondering if we're going to make the right decisions. We employ in our apple orchard a program called IPM, Integrated Pest Management. Sort of the short form of that is, I like to say, is low spray. Because our clients are mostly pick your own, people come in on weekends with their families. We can afford to spray less than, say, conventional farm would. And we have absolutely wonderful customers. They really are the best. They're educated, they're passionate about their food, and they don't mind a spot here or there. They don't mind a little bit of focus. So when I say that, I get to take our customers into the orchard, those who want to hear the 30-minute, what do you do, how do you do it, and they're very happy to learn how it works really. So when I learned about this bill that was targeting material that we use, paraquat, I was interested, that's why I'm here to testify. I'd like to say first off that nobody dislikes spraying as much as a farmer. It's tedious. Uh, it can be very challenging with some of the equipment that we have. And it's expensive, right? And if anything, a Vermont farmer is cheap. I think I heard from Bird Morse, Vermont farmers tighter than a maple bark on a maple, right? So if there's a way to avoid purchasing a material, we're going to. The material that we use that's in question today is paraquat, is something that we use very, very little of. Have a 2.5 gallon jug that's lasted me 10 years. So when we hear about it going into the environment, I think some people can imagine it just plumes of chemical going everywhere. It's simply not what happens. What we're doing is creating a narrow strip just under the trees that is not free from weeds, but has fewer weeds in it. The negative effect of this weed pressure on the tree is it can, on young trees, it can choke them out. They can die. There's a cost that we don't want to afford. And older trees, it can create habitat for pests if we're not able to suppress those weeds and those grasses. And it can create an environment where we'd have more disease getting into the canopy of the tree because of the lack of airflow and other issues. So material that we use is not broadcast over a wide area. It's a narrow band just beneath the tree. And I've seen some other reports about it drifting miles away. This might be a concern, maybe in the Midwest or the West, where they might use this material on large acreage. But for orchard owners, we're typically applying by hand or by a small mechanical unit that's, one person is operating. And when we apply this band of material, it's anywhere from 3 to 6 inches off the ground. We're not spraying it out into the air. And in fact, if we were to do that, the nature of this material, it would harm our trees. The last thing we would want to do. So, where somebody might imagine it just sort of a gaseous atmosphere, really what we have are small droplets in a very narrow band, very close to the ground. The other thing I noticed with this material, a benefit that I don't see talked about very often, when we apply it in that narrow band, it'll break down the material that's not desired. It won't harm the tree. And as that material breaks down, it's creating a really, I call it a beautiful layer of soil, of humus. So in farming and agriculture, I'm sure you all know, soil pressure is a concern. That's why they have no-till operations with dairy farms and their crops. And the soil pressure is quite literally that. Take a meter, put it in the ground here, where the tractor drives, you'll have a lot of pressure that restricts root movement, restricts water getting into the soil. But when I go into the band where we apply this material, your fingers go right into the soil. It's absolutely, it's beautiful. And one of the things I noticed last year, as you all know, we had a dry period. Where a hard, compact surface that's dry will shed water. This narrow band with this very soft soil actually absorbs the water quite effectively. And what that means is when people are very concerned about water table issues, we won't have to irrigate as much as somebody in another application because we're getting so much moisture in that area. So we have drip irrigation that runs along the bottom of the trees and is able to feed the trees what they need and more effective.
Do you use it mainly on young saplings or is this used in the orchard between most all the trees?
It should be used, not on first or second year saplings. They have what's called a green bark. That might take in some of the material. The way I would use it in that application, because we have so much control over it, if you had a tree 4 feet apart from the other one, 4 to 5 feet, which is what we do, since I'm manually spraying it, it's trigger spray, I would go past the tree 6 to 10 inches, spray up to the next tree, and leave just a little bit of, grasses or weeds next to each tree. Then we might go in mechanically, pull that out, in other words, by hand or with a trimmer.
And once you spray it, how long do you wait to say mess around with the other tree?
We'll wait 72 hours just to be safe. And that's one of the other things about it is we're going to be extra cautious about it. Even though there's nobody in the orchard, nor will there be for months. We're not going to use this material for months before. Is that what the label says? The label being a lot? No, the label gives you this 72-hour period for re-entry. So technically we could, but we don't need to, we don't want to. I mentioned it briefly before, it's an expensive product.
How many times a year do you apply?
1 to 2 times a year. Should be 2, but it takes 2 days for me.
Did you go through a certification or some kind of class to see how to apply?
Yeah, so broadly speaking, I have my Vermont pesticide applicator's license, so we're educated in that. I took a course through UPM. But then in this particular product, the company requires and the state of Vermont requires that you do an online training and that you pass their test with a score of 100%. So I did that this year, and it's put out by the company, but it is very serious. They're focused on the safety issues, and they make it very clear how this is supposed to be.
And I'm sorry. So if this were to go away, what would you do?
I briefly looked into it. I don't know what other materials there are. The one that is closest to it would be glyphosate. That is taken up by the trees, harms the trees. This product doesn't. At first, when I first got this product, I was wary of it, because of the safety issues. And in my mind, I thought, how could something that's this harmful to my lungs actually not affect the tree? And it is very safe with the tree. And when I applied right away, I think the way most orchards do it, the environment, we're not seeing it. If it went into the air like I've heard described, it would damage our canopy. It's the last thing we want. It's the foliage of trees. Very cool.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, how many acres?
We have 10 acres of apples, but they're planted in a high density trellis, so it's going to look more like a grape vineyard, tall grape vineyard. High density trellis allows us fewer inputs and greater production. Sometimes 3x the standard.
And the paraquat's mixed with water, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to get a mental picture of when you're 4 to 6 inches away, is there any sort of kickback or I know we don't aerial spray in Vermont, but I'm just trying to get a picture of what it looks like when you're spraying.
Yeah, briefly, I can tell you start to finish. When we're loading the tank, we're wearing full Tyvek suit. Yep, all our PPE. I just got a new full face mask. Replace the cartridges, rubber gloves. We load this tank, and now the company, by law, has this continuity of transfer. So you can't pour it into a cup and pour it in. It's from the jug to the applicating tank. Excuse me. And then we mix the tank, and because we're small, 10 acres, it's all by hand. And I use wand sprayer. I go out on an RTV, a Gator, and we drive slowly and with the wand just over the tree, so I can see each tree as it's coming. We're going maybe half a mile to 1.5 miles per hour. So it's not a fast application. It's very deliberate, very focused. And I've had happen, we do it only on an absolutely still day. And really that's sort of the self-preservation policy. I don't want it coming up on me. I'm fully covered. I just don't want to deal with that. So the second, if you get one of those rogue breezes, yep, shut it down. I'm done.
And you mentioned that you pick them, so the people that come, customers are actually walking in that sprayed area?
No, they can't because that's where the tree is.
Okay,
I mean, I wouldn't.
you're under the tree when you're,
Right, yeah. You think of this tree as like a very tall, narrow tree. It's not a canopy. It's more like great figure.
okay.
Yeah, and as far as the material, from what I understand, what I've read, as soon as it hits soil, so all the microbes and fungus in the soil break it down very quickly. I think the extended re-entry period, that's sort of 48 to 72 hours. I think that's being overly cautious. The area is safe, from what we can tell very quickly. So that if we're doing it months out, I wouldn't be worried about somebody even picking fruit out of that area.
Thanks.
Any other fruits that you're, or any other product that you're growing? And
Yeah, I just look to see if this is labeled for, I'm sure you're all aware, the label's the boss, so we read the label through every year. We are beginning some blueberries, so I've read to see if it's labeled for blueberries. It is. And that'd be very helpful. Blueberries that tend to get really packed on the colors. Other than that, no, we wouldn't use it anywhere else. Any other weed suppression that's not near a fruit or vegetable or tree, we use a different, in honesty, for products.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got working on the first one, so I'll go to the second one. So we were told that Syngenta's going to stop selling in December. And do you have a plan?
And I had not heard that. Yeah, I don't know where that information comes from. I'm not an industry insider. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what it's.
Pretty certain that's what's going to happen. I don't know how much they're going to have that they're going to just keep selling. Oh, and that was my other question is, so it's 2.5 gallons 10 years ago you bought, and where did you get it?
From the tree. Well, at that time it was a different name, but the material suppliers in Madison for the state.
Okay. And the reason I asked is we don't really know where all of it is, but we're seeing, where it's being sold. Acid.
Yeah,
It's sold mostly.
but yeah, I think there might be. I don't know. Greg probably knows, but there's I think 2 main companies that we might get in.
everybody good?
Yeah.
Anything, sir, that we'd like to add?
But I appreciate your listening.
Yeah.
Very much. All the work you do. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, do we have some folks online?
Yes, so from Southern Vermont Orchards.
Okay. Laura Marks, are you with us?
It might be Leah Diamond.
Leah Diamond.
Yeah. They're both some.
Step down for a minute.
No problem. Anybody who's on the screen who wants to testify in the Senate Agriculture, come on aboard.
Whoops.
Just for the committee's benefit, I Googled this, so Syngenta has announced it will cease global production of the parent bud by the end of June of this year.
Yeah. think it's in December.
I thought it was.
I thought they said they'd stop selling.
The selling is December.
Yeah.
So,
They don't have January.
Probably production, June.
For there.
Good morning, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
We're from Southern Vermont Orchards. We're just saying good morning.
Well, we're all set for you to testify whenever you're ready.
I'm not really sure what you would like me to testify, actually.
Well, I would love to, the committee would love to hear, about, whether you use paraquat in your orchards and your experience with it, how you use it, anything that you want to tell us about that, or whether you don't use it, or what your thoughts are.
So it's a great product for us for young trees.
Please tell us, I'm sorry, I apologize, just gotta tell us who you guys are, that's all.
My name's Laura Marks, and I'm from Southern Vermont Orchards in Bennington, Vermont. And I'm with the owner, Leah Diamond.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And like I was saying, we have had really great success with paraquat, using it on our young trees. It's a really effective product for us, and it doesn't hurt our baby trees, which is why we use it. We've done paraquat training with the sprayers that use it. I just did the Syngenta training also. I think using the closed transfer system is very effective and safe. We do pride ourselves on following the rules and regulations and keeping our workers safe, as well as our community and also the success of our orchard.
How many acres?
We're about 217 acres.
And how much paraquat do you think you use in a year?
Actually, I figured I can't remember what it was. I think I used it 4 or 5 times last year. I can actually tell you exactly. I just have to get my record.
Okay. We'd be interested in that.
Okay.
Leah, how long has your orchard been in business?
Excuse me?
How long has your orchard been in business?
We've owned it since 1973.
Yes.
I'm the 3rd generation
Oh.
apple grower.
For the 200 acres, are those all apple trees?
Yes, it is.
And you've used paraquat since 73?
No. It was highly recommended to us by our distributor for young trees. So I've been running the orchard. I've been here 30 years out of New York. And so as we've been replanting in the last couple of years, we've been using them mostly on the young trees.
Okay. As far as just curious about because we are an agriculture committee, just curious about where your apples go. How do you market those apples?
The apples are sent down to Hudson River Fruit Distributors. It's a Packard distributor out of Milton, New York. That's we're a family business.
Any U-picks?
No,
No.
no. I used to own the apple barn, and I had a U-pick there of strawberries and blueberries. But I believe in the 1970s, earlier, when my dad purchased the orchard, they had a small U-pick, but that's been gone for many years.
200 acres, how big is your workforce?
During the height of the season, about 63 guys.
Very impressive.
And
Thank you.
how long did you say you've been using paraquat?
I'd have to look back in time. I've been
Yes.
using it for the last couple of years as I've been replanting the orchard,
Okay.
but I don't believe it's been used for a long extended time.
Okay.
You
And
re-
Laura's now looking at the spray records and to let you know how much we used last year.
Do you have a 1 or 2 people that are licensed to do your spraying, or do you have how does that work with you?
Just for the paraquat or just sprayers?
The paraquat, I guess, would be what I'd be interested in the most.
Yes, absolutely. Laura, what do you have, 2, 3? Well, there's 3 of us that are certified. And
Mhm.
Laura is the operational manager that takes care of all of that.
Okay,
And we're all have our pesticide license as well. There's about 7 of us that have our licenses.
so you had said that it was highly recommended that you use paraquat. So it must be that you weren't having good results with what you were using before, or or you just didn't have much of a thought process about it?
Probably not much of a, to be honest, probably not much of a thought process other than the fact it was a good product and it was safe to use on the young trees. There was history on how I came into becoming the owner slash manager on the farm. So I went by with trust in the recommendation of our representatives, the nutrient rep.
Okay. Laura, are you good to go?
Yes, so we used it for about 6 weeks. And I'm gonna guess I'm gonna say about we used about 30 gallons.
30 gallons, okay.
How wide a strip when you spray? We've heard up to, what do you say, about maybe 2 feet at the most, 2 feet. You go wider?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Is it hand sprayed mainly?
No, we use an herbicider and it's about 5 inches off the ground, maybe.
Mhm.
Could you go through the step of what you do? You mix it obviously, and then what happens? Tell us about the piece of equipment you use and how it operates, if you could.
You wanna?
We use an Edwards sprayer and it's
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt a second. I happen to have my mechanic here as well. Can you come on over here? He'll give you exactly what we use.
it's a 36-inch band.
Yep, sorry, Laura. Peter, go ahead.
Morning. The hips are set up.
Can you hear him?
Yeah, he's just gonna tell us who he is, please.
His name is Peter Farrington, and he's my mechanic on the farm.
Go ahead, Peter. Welcome.
Set up so that the spray height is 14 inches above the ground. At that elevation, it leaves about a 32 to 36-inch spray pattern.
Okay.
And is it just a watery mix, or is there something added to it so it sticks to the grass?
Just water.
Just water.
All right, thanks.
Any more questions?
Oh.
Yep.
On application day, it has to be, what's the conditions have to be that you spray in? Or does it matter?
Low humidity and no wind.
Okay. Any more questions?
Really appreciate your testimony.
Yeah, anything that you folks would like to add to your testimony?
No. I mean, we do try to be as safe as possible and keep everyone safe and follow the rules and follow the label.
If you were to not have paraquat, what would you use?
We're trying to come up with something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any we're good? No.
Your supplier saplings, can we get his contact information? He obviously sells a lot of saplings and obviously likes the use of paraquat because that's how you found out about it. Just so we can get some more information is what we're thinking. Or I'm thinking.
I'm not really sure if you want to talk to the nurseries. I don't think that's exactly what you're looking for. I'm not really sure. I feel like your best bet would to be in touch with Syngenta.
The gentleman who recommended it
I
is
know,
no
I
longer
guess
there.
I-
There's
I
a
guess
new
I
guy.
didn't
There's a
agree
new
with that.
rep that comes around.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time and thank you for digging for your records as well. And if you have anything that you want to add, we're gonna be talking about this for a while, so please feel free to jump in at any time, but thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, you're very welcome. Yes.
So I know we're focused mostly on Syngenta, but there are other manufacturers here, but
I'm gonna bring in, I'm gonna ask, Laws Agriculture Service, who was big in Addison County and that way. I'm gonna ask him to step in and
there's
maybe
7 or 8.
maybe I can get him for Tuesday to come in. So that's a good, suggestion as far as to bring those folks in as well. And to see what they sell for gallons and on from that, so, and maybe even, the old Northeast Ag as well. Shania's, well, was Shania's and it's starting to dwindle a little bit. But yeah, we can do that. Linda, do we have anybody else on?
No.
Okay. Mr. Burr, was there anything like you would like to add for testimony today?
I can, yeah.
Come on up.
Record Representative Greg Burke. Also an apple orchardist in Cabot. I mean, I think you've heard pretty much the same story about how it's sprayed and used, in terms of trying to think of a good way to visualize when you're spraying, what it appears to look like to me anyway, in terms of how much vapor is there coming off of this. I think it's probably similar if you're out there with a garden hose watering your garden, in terms of how long is there a little cloud of water vapor coming off of the spray that you're putting on your garden. If you can visualize that, it's water coming. It's just it doesn't really change the consistency of the liquid, so that it's more, in my opinion, appearing more volatile when I see it. It's pretty much like if you were doing a broad spray with a garden hose, how long you can see a vapor cloud over that. It's not long. And we really don't want a vapor cloud because that's going to get on the foliage of the trees.
I know that when I had my pesticide applicator's license, we were always concerned about drift.
Right.
And in fact, when there was a chance of anything that would drift, we would use a surfactant to make it heavier and make it so that it would cling quicker to whatever we were trying to make the contact on.
I don't use surfactant.
You
And I don't-
don't-
and that- and that's
On this product,
because
you don't have to.
because we have to be careful that we're not putting something in there that can absorb into the tissue of the tree trunk more easily. So, I use, it's not Roundup, it's glyphosate, it's another product, it's a generic brand.
Yep.
That's specifically does not have the, penetrants in it that Roundup would normally have. If you're just hitting vegetation that you want everything to die, penetrants and surfactants are a good thing. It helps it to penetrate and stick. But you don't want that on the trunk of a tree, so we use the just base, no surfactant, no penetrant, just the product itself. Because of that concern about getting into tree trunks. Yeah, that's I think the nature of how it's applied is really, it lends itself to trying to minimize drift and minimize volatility as much as possible.
There's a big difference between the way you two apply it and what we just heard from, the other agriculture company, Southern Vermont. Of course, bigger scale, obviously, so we have to. He said 17 inches off the ground, correct?
No, it's
14 at a 32-inch span.
32 to 36.
So Linda, we had I'll see if I can't find it as well. We had a strawberry grower in Addison, I think, that does not use paraquat. And they came over on our emails, and I'd like to get that person in as well. I think they're more organic. I don't think that they use any chemical at all. So I'd really like to, I'll look through my emails as well. Sorry, Representative Burke, I apologize.
Good.
Um,
I would, I can speak a little bit to alternative methods that we would.
I
use.
would love to, yeah.
I mean, I've looked into purchasing a mower that goes behind a tractor that has a hydraulic arm coming off it. There's a supplier in Massachusetts that sells orchard equipment. And it's basically a disc mower. It appears to be about this big. It's on an arm that's moved hydraulically. And there's a bar in front of it that is a sensor. Basically, when it touches something, it hydraulically moves the arm backward. And then once you get past that bar, it would mow between the trunks. I think when I priced it out, it was $20,000 for that mower. So that would do a pretty good job of getting most of the grasses. At the trunk itself, there's always going to be a little bit of grass left that we would have to remove. And then you have, and Dan was speaking of this, you have competition and a more compacted, tighter soil around the trees that the trees would have to basically compete with in that process if we leave vegetation growing at its full capacity. I mean, I have the orchard grass in my orchard left unchecked will be this tall. And my first branches on the small trees are down here. So we have to remove vegetation one way or another. I've experimented myself with a plant called ground ivy. It has like 7 names. It's ale hoof ground ivy. And I came across some research done in like Korea where they did similar, where they tried to propagate ground ivy underneath the trees. And ground ivy is great because it only grows about that tall and it can kind of choke out other plants. And I experimented. I transplanted ground ivy throughout my orchard. I found it naturally occurring. I said, well, this seems to be working well. Is anyone else doing it? My wife found that research being done in Korea. That was the only other place that we could find it just by happenstance. We were able to transplant ground ivy throughout the orchard. So we've taken initiatives to do things. I actually used paraquat as an herbicide where there wasn't any ground ivy and where there was other vegetation. I used paraquat, burned that down so that the ground ivy, it's an ivy, it throws out shoots, right? And then that's how it spread. When I used Roundup, it would damage the ground ivy. So I was using paraquat because it could more precisely isolate spots where there wasn't ground ivy. And then I had mixed success with that. It needs shade. It likes shade. Of course, we don't want too much shade that our orchards want light to be able to penetrate through. I was able to make it work well in some places, more where the ground's more moist, didn't like the dry spots. So I mean, I've been trying different things to minimize how much we're using, but it was actually paraquat, which was the chemical that worked to help that to happen, not glyphosate, because it would get into the plant and actually kill the ground ivy. So we're trying. The other option would be, trying to till around the trees, but there's fine roots there that we don't want to damage. We don't want to damage the trunks. Bill Scher, who I love, he testified in our committee. I would love to have him on if possible, but he really spoke to our new planting systems require trees to be planted much closer together, more trees per acre. Okay, so I have some areas where I'm at 3 feet between trees and 11 feet between rows, and that which gives you about 1,500 trees per acre. The old style is like somewhere between 100 and 300 trees per acre. So we're literally 10 times the amount of trunks coming up out of the ground. And those trunks it's really important that they are kept growing strongly and not competing with things. We have to have a return on investment of around 6 to 8 years, or else you might as well not even plant the trees to give us. It's I don't know what it's at now with inflation. $40,000 an acre is pretty average number for the cost to establish an orchard now. And if you start losing somewhere between 10 to 30% of the trees from, just not proper management of those trees, competition with vegetation, of dogwood, tree borers, which love having vegetation around the trunks to protect them from birds coming along and eating them. You know, anything that can shield a borer from a predator is another chance of losing a tree. It all takes is one borer from a dogwood borer. The tree's done. I've lost trees to dogwood borers.
What's the lifespan of your tree when you plant it? How many years is it productive for?
So, I mean, I think you can get them to live 40 to 60 years. But a lot of, and I think in Vermont, you're going to see orchardists trying to get them to live as long as possible, depending on their market. I've talked to growers out in Utah where they're building their plan is to only have trees that are there for 20 years, and then they're cycling them out because there's the next best apple is coming along, right? So they're not trying to plan for something 30 to 40 years out. They're trying to make a good profit on a 20-year cycle, which means that you need to
The
get
apple orchard business has really been changing too from what we think of a traditional apple. It's changed dramatically by the sounds.
It really is, yeah. We've got labor costs, it's not different than any other form of agriculture. We're trying to manage them as precisely as possible. You can't have somebody that's got shaky business skills in any agricultural business now. You have to be precise. You have to look at a return on investment that's not too far out, and always be looking at the market for what it's potentially going to do. So, like everything else, our margin for error is not large, and I think that's why you're seeing people with just one small piece of the puzzle saying, "Hey, we don't take this decision lightly."
So you brought into discussion a very good point. Something again, trying to just expand our knowledge and decision making. And you're talking about the fragility of the roots of the apple trees and other methods to get where you want to be. So there is when I was in that business, and maybe it's changed, as Senator Heffernan said, it's a changing industry. We would only fertilize around the drip ends of the trees because we were worried about the root systems of the trees and burning them up because they were fragile or whatever. Can you talk about more of the care that you have to give these apple trees and why some other forms of management might not work for you?
Sure. I mean, I'm constantly analyzing the health of my trees. We do foliar tests every year on different parts of the orchard, different varieties, where you get leaf samples midsummer, send them out to a company. They tell you all your micronutrients, down to manganese and copper, zinc, boron. Boron is one where it doesn't take a whole lot to get off, and all of a sudden you're not getting return blossoms. We're constantly looking at our nutrients, right? And so the root systems are part of that. There's just so many different variables involved in making sure the trees are at optimum health and optimum production. So
How do apple trees react to compaction as far as if you're running equipment in between them and all of that?
Right. So, I mean, obviously where you're driving the tractor down between row middles, you're going to have some compaction. The idea is to make sure that the rest of it's soft soil, and soil that is optimal for growth. There are machines out there where you can basically rototill pretty deep where your tracks are from your tractor too, and take the compaction out of that zone. I don't get that sophisticated, but but anything, the whole tree from the fine branches to the buds down to the fine roots, we have to be mindful of all the health. So I applied, I've gone back to getting some cow manure from a dairy farmer down the road because I'm wanting to make sure that I'm not just using chemical fertilizer in the orchard. I want to make sure my microbiome is optimized too. So I'm in the next month or so, I'm going to go get a manure from him and apply that throughout the orchard so that it has plenty of time to compost before fall. But I've seen the benefits of that firsthand wood ash coming from the biomass plants. I've applied that. I prefer to get high magnesium lime over regular lime, which, you know, if you get lime from up in northern Champlain Valley area, it doesn't have as much magnesium. You get it from down in South Wallingford in that area, you're getting into higher magnesium. Okay, so like I think about everything that's going on in my orchard. Okay, and magnesium is associated with a lot of the needs of the tree in terms of the turn bloom, in terms of getting fruit size. And magnesium competes with potassium. If you put down too much potassium and don't couple that with magnesium, there's the same uptake mechanism where you're going to actually block the tree from getting enough magnesium by giving it too much potassium. We have to be very careful with nitrogen. If you put too much nitrogen on, you're going to get a lot of vegetation and you're not going to get as much fruit production. But if you don't have enough nitrogen, you're not going to get either.
Quite the balance game.
Yeah, so that's why I get those foliar. We get soil analysis done too. Foliar, I think, is more accurate. And so you really try to get optimized on every single nutrient.
And how many acres you do?
20.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, I brought up a study from the European Society of Medicine, and the professor we had from UNH expressed at least some doubt about that abstract that I read that had little causation between the use of paraquat and Parkinson's disease. Douglas Weed was his name, last name.
Yeah.
So I had nothing else to do. Yeah.
And we got that from you, Brett.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he and the professor, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he was one of our Mortensen. Yeah.
Okay.
So he suggested that we were going to get, and he did send it, another article. This is from the International Epidemiological Association. And one of the things that I think he expressed concern about from Doug Weed was that he was potentially linked with Syngenta in some fashion. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing what he said exactly, but at any rate. So this is a study with 5 people. And to be fair, and again, trying to get as educated about this as I can, the conclusion of this study was that paraquat dichloride exposure does increase the risk of Parkinson's disease. But I noted in terms of conflict of interest that 2 of the researchers, just to be fair, one is an expert consultant for the plaintiff in a lawsuit against Syngenta on the role of paraquat, and the other one has also been retained as an expert consultant for the plaintiff in a similar lawsuit against Syngenta. So take that for whatever it's worth. I think a lot of us are linked in some fashion to one side or another of an argument, but he was the one that brought up the Douglas Weed.
Mortensen's point was that we didn't disclose it. These folks did.
Okay.
So that was sort of like,
and that's fair.
and he had also said he hadn't done a deep dive into it
Okay.
at the time.
Fair point. But then I also looked at the, one of my questions yesterday, I think, to the professor was, if this chemical is so bad, why hasn't the EPA done something until now about banning it nationwide? So I did look on the EPA website. This is the Office of Chemical Safety and Pollution Prevention of the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States of America. And the conclusion at the end of it, and we were talking about the volatilization of the spray. So if you live a certain distance away from a farm that's using it, an orchard, there appears to be more of an incidence of contracting Parkinson's at some point. And I think we heard early on in this whole discussion that age is a factor. The older you are, regardless of how close you are to someone that's using paraquat, the more likely you are to get Parkinson's. I mean, there aren't a lot of 25, 30-year-old people that are contracting it. So the older you get, and I think that is an important consideration at least. But anyway, they did a study on the volatilization. And the conclusion, this is from the EPA from October of 2025, The vapor pressure study submitted by Syngenta increased uncertainty around the potential for paraquat to volatilize, since vapor pressure is a key property used to estimate flux in that process. While the volatilization screen is one tool to assess potential inhalation exposure, the results are not an indicator of risk or the need to identify risk mitigations. In the case of paraquat, again, quoting from the EPA, there is discrepancy among the multiple lines of evidence. The ambient air monitoring study found no detectable levels of paraquat in the air of communities near agricultural application sites. And the EFED, that's environmental study, indicated that paraquat is not expected to volatilize from water and soil, but it also has, in terms of a screening analysis, estimated an increased potential for that volatilization to occur from residues on foliage based on the new vapor pressure study. But in the end, they said to resolve the discrepancy introduced, they want more data and more study done. So again, I'm just trying to educate myself as to whether there's a problem and a definite link between folks that apply this or live near where it's being applied to the risk of contracting Parkinson's. And I'm seeing, as it's true in a lot of studies, there's one study that says yes, there's one study that says no, and we're kind of always caught in the middle, because I'm trying to decide here which way to go. So I just thought for the committee's benefit, and I literally had nothing else to do with it.
And that actually made me think of something I was gonna ask afterwards. I probably should have asked Laura, but I can ask Greg and Dan. Does it have a smell?
Yeah, they actually, they add three different things as a safety measure. A dye, a material that causes you to gag and choke and vomit, and a very distinct smell.
And what is it like?
It's just like sharp, pungent. Is that how you would?
So that you know you're
Because that's the thing is, if you smell a respirator on, right? Same, yeah. So it's added on purpose.
Does it require a respirator or just a face mask? That was a question.
You know, I'd have to look at that. I always wear.
Because
I don't.
yeah,
Because I know, like,
now-
with Roundup, you're not required to, but we wear Roundup too.
The other thing I wanted to know,
You know, need to
we Vermont has a how old's the Fruit Growers Conference this year? 130 years, I think. The longest running agricultural fruit organization in probably the country. And this is just anecdotal. I've never seen anyone with Parkinson's there. It's third, fourth generation farmers, or just guys that were exposed to chemicals that are now banned. I don't think I've ever seen anyone harmed by it.
I believe it's an NIH. I mean, I'm not don't have one here as an expert, except just for the fact that I also researched it. We took testimony, but I think it's the NIH, if I'm not wrong, who did the largest study of all, which is over 30,000 agricultural workers, so people directly using paraquat, and that was the one that
Let's find that study.
Yeah.
I want to find that study.
That's the AHS study, agricultural health study, I believe, and that's the one that I believe it's weed that he references that in there and says.
You said NIH.
I think it's the NIH so that's the same institute that decide whether or not our pharmaceutical drugs are safe. Is also the one who took the data and did the study on whether or not the paraquat was causing Parkinson's, and they did not find a link in that study.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can't find it.
There are others certainly that saw like a 1.46, and I don't know exactly what that number means, but a higher correlation between Parkinson's, and there's specifically one down in California that I read about, and that's the one where he talks about there are two researchers involved that were also involved in litigation against Syngenta. And in that European Medical Society article, I believe it's
Doug Reed.
He at least said, if he was being funded or linked to any particular entity in doing that meta study, and he declared that he was not at the end of it.
Yeah, that journal.
But I don't know.
That little,
who do you wish that you would have got into where would you wish that you would have gone that you guys didn't do in your house agriculture committee? Do you think of
I
any?
wish we had testimony from Gray that we were not aware. We were trying to find out who else might be using Paraquat in the state. And so the strawberry guy, knowing that there are others, I don't want to just carve out for apple growers if there are other folks who are using it in a very localized, special manner. And I talked to him briefly after he was left from doing testimony. He said there were certainly other conventional vegetable and berry growers that were using it too.
Well, Steve mentioned in California, potatoes.
New York is it? And Greg, how much do you? I think you said this before, but how much do you use a year?
It's somewhere around a gallon. I believe a year. It's not a lot. It is only at this point. I was using it, like I said, when I was trying to establish ground value. I was using it throughout our whole orchard at that point. Now I only use it on our young trees.
Okay, and it's just on the young trees.
Yes.
Should have asked. In fairness, I texted Brad Laws from the Laws Agricultural Service and just asked him about Paraquat, and he said, I haven't sold 20 gallons in 10 years. So,
Nutrient Ag Solutions would probably be the one to get a hold of out of Madison. They supply the most apple growers. Nutrient also owns Northeast Ag now.
Right.
And then Bill, but I believe
the
Addison's the one that's supplying the orchard growers.
Penn State did a good thing with this.
So I just want to, as much as I want to limit, the effects of Parkinson's and all that, I think we're getting a very good idea about how people are using Paraquat. So I'm going to start to maybe drain down some of that testifying now. I want to get into some folks that have decided not to use it. I think that's fair. I want to hear from them. I'd like to really see if we can dig deep and find some studies and maybe even get some of those folks, even if they're not in Vermont, to get them on pros and cons. I'd be very interested in hearing about, some of the long-term users of Paraquat and some of those bigger, massive, more amounts. I would love to get somebody who's, I think that was said yesterday, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do not want to get it out there, but that California uses 500,000 gallons of it.
Or pounds.
I can't remember what it was, but I would love to find some more information about that and about, that. So let's keep digging. Let's keep doing what we do. Let's keep finding some, I want some more testimony.
And by contrast, I think from the Ag Agency, Vermont, maybe 120 gallons a year.
125, I thought it was.
It was sold, I think it's less than that. I say it's 107.
And I have a hard time saying that amount was being used because as
That's right.
as Dan, yeah,
125 reported sales.
right. So I don't know if we're even
125, 30 in Bennington. That was,
we heard exactly.
that was big. All of it.
Although 67.5 was sold in Addison, which is right.
And they said that
Folks
they
themselves.
treated some soybean, tried it, didn't give it again that.
You did ask a question about nurseries, and there are a couple, two biggest ones in our area. They might be worth talking to because they're only dealing with small trees. Not that they're not located in Vermont. But you would see if
you
they
have those names, share them with us.
Yeah, I can
We'll bring
email
them in as much as.
email it to the communities.
Okay. Committee.
More to come.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to keep digging, so let's dig.
Penn State did a good thing on its harm and effect and or what it can do to you if you breathe it in, those weeds. But once it affects you, there's no going back. It's pretty consistent. I know that proper use is There's many other chemicals out there.
Yeah.
You're saying.
One thing that's worth noting too is just the fact that the other 70 countries, I think Brazil is looking at Parkinson's. That's the only other one I was aware of. All the others banned it for acute toxicity.
Right. I think that's
From suicide or from just a concern about how.
and some people can argue that we're being lapsing behind in this country, but maybe we're just doing a better job of keeping people from being affected as well. But we don't know that. Let's, I'd like testimony to where we can point to that. And again, I want to get to where you guys can defend your decision on what you make. So, the decision that you make. So let's keep asking the questions and let's keep going. I'm not ready to vote on this bill right now. So, I think it would be unfair to everyone if we did that. Let's keep.
Are we under some kind of gun?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely, possibly not.
May 8th.
Yeah.
That's what.
If we can even get to that,
Yeah.
even if we can get to that.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not under
I
any gun.
was just trying to see if we were, there was some.
I have no plans to do anything other than to keep on taking testimony and this committee will tell me when they've heard enough.
After seeing the weather today, I'm saying April 15th.
Okay,
We know.
anybody else got anything to add? Linda, we don't have anybody else online?
No.
Everybody's cleared off? Everybody good in here?